following program is recommended by the National Education Association.
Through darkened streets, through a Boston held under lock and key by British soldiers, ordinary men, extraordinary men, unleashed a quiet fury in Massachusetts, driven by an idea, a spirit of freedom, of independence. On the strength of that idea, they instigated a revolution that didn't stop till it drove from our shores the mightiest military power in the world. Tea Party took on a new meaning. One if by land, two if by sea, were signals to patriots, not lines in a poem. They passed on the spirit at town meetings, cradling a nation in its infancy, more certain of their convictions than of the revolution's outcome. Quietly, but not alone, they tested and questioned and dared to challenge. Massachusetts has a long, rich history, one America knows by heart. It commands respect and offers inspiration.
Unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The state is still a haven of independent thinking, and yet it's careful to preserve what it can't replace. Its land, its landmarks, its hard-fought ideals. Tradition and innovation thrive in a state that cherishes both. A state small in size, but immense in spirit. Back in colonial times, King George described Massachusetts, his most troublesome colony, this way: they think as they please and speak as they think. Well, things haven't changed much. Join us and see on Portrait of America. The first settlers came to Massachusetts with an idea, a lofty idea, to build a new world, to carve a Christian utopia out of the wilderness. They set about their task on a rocky glacial soil after crossing an uncharted sea. Both became avenues to success, making the Puritan dream reality. But in time, something else would prove even more valuable to Massachusetts. That which conceived it in the first place, the mind. Massachusetts' major industry is ideas. Its major resource, people. Massachusetts is the birthplace of American literature, of countless firsts in medicine, industry, and technology, and of just about every milestone in American education. There's a firm belief in this state that learning is essential, that new ideas begin knowing where others end. Massachusetts was the first state to establish public schools and libraries, kindergartens, and schools for the handicapped. The Model College for Women, Mount Holyoke, is here. And of course, Harvard, the oldest and many say finest university in America. Harvard is just one of the 65 colleges and universities in the Boston area alone. That's the greatest concentration of higher learning in the world. More out-of-state students come to Massachusetts than any other state, drawn by a standard of educational excellence that's unmatched.
When I arrived at Harvard Medical School, the most impressive things were my colleagues, extremely impressive people, and many of those stay around to become faculty members. There's absolutely no question. I could, within a mile, find the greatest minds in the world in almost any field.
Dr. Frank Duffy is one of those great minds who trained in Massachusetts and stayed on to work here. He's part of the state's enormous pool of brain power in the field of medicine.
This is the sort of place where someone wins a Nobel Prize and you hear about it. Oh, him, oh, I didn't realize he was working on anything interesting.
Dr. Duffy has put his mind to studying how other minds work. He hopes to unlock the mystery of dyslexia, a condition where the brain scrambles what the eye reads.
The Commonwealth, of course, has mandated testing of all preschool children to try to find those where there are educational difficulties. I think that reflects the great emphasis on education in Massachusetts. Why should you have your first educational experience be one of great difficulty?
To analyze Stephen Kelly's brain activity, Dr. Duffy needed a machine that didn't exist. So he invented one, the beam machine, that displays brain function in a whole new way on a TV screen.
Most ideas occur listening to other people talk, or having supper, or on a weekend, or riding home in a car with someone. New ideas, by definition, are usually not well received, unpopular, or mistrusted. And it takes the internal fire of the person who has the concept to push it through to its conclusion.
Alpha is normal, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, so that's a normal study.
Stephen's brain activity is normal. His test will be used for comparison with children who have reading problems, bringing Dr. Duffy one step closer to an answer.
That's a nice normal rhythm.
One of the nice parts about being in this environment is that not only are the opportunities for collaboration present, but the opportunities for isolation are here. Just physically, you can be outside of the urban area of Boston easily within an hour out in the country, so you can think.
Massachusetts has an endless variety of quiet corners for contemplation. The most well-known is a spring-fed pond called Walden. Henry David Thoreau began his famous 2-year stay at Walden Pond in 1845. Before Thoreau, before Massachusetts gave the world Emerson, Longfellow, Hawthorne, and Melville, there was no American literature. Thoreau came to the woods to confront only the essential facts of life. He came away with a new philosophy of simplicity, self-reliance, and reverence for nature. Thoreau's message still echoes through the quiet hills of central Massachusetts. Along the Connecticut River, amidst forests and streams and tiny hill towns, many of his spiritual descendants make their home in what's called the Pioneer Valley. Mike Humphreys left city life behind 10 years ago. He and some friends bought this farmhouse. The friends eventually moved on, but Mike chose to stay.
I think it's fun because there's always a challenge, and there's always a solution. It's a matter of whether you're going to be able to be patient. And let's say split wood. You know, you start with that first log. The people here are, I think, very unique in this particular area. They're very intelligent. They're very spiritual, aware of their life. You don't just go out and do something to make money, or you don't just go out to do something just to be busy. Better to stop and think about it.
Mike's advice is from the heart. He put aside a master's degree and a job to pursue what he loved most: woodworking.
The opportunity to be in a quiet place, away from a lot of noise and distraction, is a privilege. And to be able to set up a small shop in the back of your shed or in a barn or in your house somewhere and start working at your own pace is very important. It's a challenge to put something together from scratch and have it be beautiful, have it fit, be graceful. Getting a chance to make something that's going to last. Maybe some of these joints, they've been used for years by craftsmen like myself, long since gone, and they've passed on what they know down to us, and that's pretty nice. There we go. Now that's the sound that you want to hear, a nice hiss, just like that.
Setting up shop in this part of Massachusetts is more than just peaceful, it's practical. Nearby towns like Miller's Falls and Athol manufacture the finest precision tools money can buy. Part of the reason more craftsmen live in this area than anywhere else in the country.
It gets lonely up here, and there's nothing better than being able to walk or ski down the road and go and say, hey, you won't believe it, I'm having a bad time. And there's somebody who can relate to you. They may not work in the same medium, but they're going to say, come on in, let's have a beer, cup of tea. I'll tell you my problems. Plus successes, sharing successes is wonderful.
Life in this rural setting has strengthened the common bond of friendship, and a less common one, Mike's close ties with nature.
Well, I relate to trees, and they mean a lot to me in my life and in the work that I do. I get wood from them, and we get the maple syrup. You treat them as individuals, as definitely a living entity, and you're very respectful of them. You're tapping into their blood, their lifeblood, and they're giving you something that is very pleasurable. I thank them. I don't thank them outright, but I feel like patting them or something. I'm definitely taking something from them. They don't talk back to you. They don't say ouch. They just sort of sit there silently, and you drill into them, and they give.
In Massachusetts, a century later, Thoreau's philosophy is practiced, his vision kept alive.
Oh, I think that in everybody, something in the very large part of their mind is telling them something. We just have to listen, just take the time to think about it. I don't see striving for great wealth, a lot of possessions, as bringing anybody happiness in the long run. I mean, you'll get satisfaction the moment it's paid for, but it won't give you what a smile will give you.
Perhaps it's their love of freedom. Perhaps because they have such precious little land to call their own. Or perhaps because they stop and think about such things. Whatever the reason, Massachusetts has a love affair with open spaces. The nation's first Audubon Society was founded here to protect wildlife and natural habitats. The environmental movement is still strong, struggling now to meet the challenge of development. The stage is set. The true test yet to come out on Cape Cod. The Cape is the fastest growing area in all of New England. Its year-round population jumped 50% in 10 years, bringing new prosperity and new problems. There's a limited supply of fresh water and a delicate ecology at stake. Much of the Upper Cape's dunes and marshes is protected by the Cape Cod National Seashore. On the rest of the Cape, the battle continues. On a hot summer weekend, 200,000 tourists cross this one narrow bridge. To end the traffic nightmare, to get more people to the Cape quicker, the state proposed a new highway right through the middle of Hope Ingersoll's pasture.
Well, it was almost unbelievable because they had talked about these things for many years past and nothing had come of it. But it looked as though they were serious.
They were serious, and so was Hope Ingersoll. She's fought them tooth and nail for 27 years.
It would have come in at the end of that fence over by the woods and come catty-corner right across here. And right by the end of the hen house, 17 feet in the air. It wouldn't have been very nice.
Hope grew up on Grazing Fields Farm in Buzzards Bay. As a child, she did farm chores for 10 cents an hour. She saved $200 to buy her first pony and has been a top breeder ever since. Her mother bought this land in 1907, clearing a small part for the working farm, leaving the rest untouched.
We didn't do any hunting, and we tried to preserve everything that was here. There was a great variety of wildlife and lots of birds. People like to go where they could see wildlife. And if you're going to see wildlife, you've got to have a place that's big enough to support the wildlife.
Much of Hope's 900 acres is a private nature preserve. Its forests, fields, and marshes have remained so through the sheer determination of their owner.
And it was very difficult to try to find any organization or person that could help to repel this thing that was coming. And we just persisted and persisted and finally came up with some answers.
With help from conservation groups, in the end, she won. The road will circle her farm, and land like this can now be saved under a Wetlands Protection Act that came out of her case, an act that became a model for the rest of the country.
This is one called Soul Dance.
School children visit Grazing Fields Farm, as they have for decades.
I just feel that we don't really begin young enough with children to teach them conservation and kindness to animals and so forth. I mean, I think that ought to come with the very first grades. You get so excited about what you're going to have in the way of a foal or a lamb or something that's outstanding each year. It always renews itself, you know.
A few miles away, the summer people still come in record numbers. Some for a day, others for the season. Provincetown at the tip of Cape Cod is a warm weather mecca for artists and other free spirits. In winter, this is a very different place. The bustling summer playground gives way to another mood of quiet and serenity. Some say this is the real Cape Cod, the Cape Cod worth saving. On its island neighbor, Martha's Vineyard, winter's deserted beaches and rough seas take on a new beauty. But for the 1 in 10 people who stay here year-round, like Tom Hale, a boat builder, winter is a mixed blessing.
We love it in the winter, but but you have to have a lot of your own inner resources to enjoy it. Come spring and summer, it turns into a zoo, and we're just running our legs off, trying to keep people's boats running and sailors happy, and I look forward to the summer and the winter, and I look forward to the winter and the summer.
With the crush of summer tourists gone, something else remains. The island's small-town character. The local bank president, Bill Honey, thinks that's worth preserving. He runs his bank accordingly.
Now, there were 10 babies born last week. We know that. We know who they are. And we can rejoice with their families. Well, when we have a customer at our drive-in, if there is a dog in the car, the teller will send a dog bone out to the dog. And they've got to sort of expect it. And one time we ran out of dog bones. And the teller said, you know, the dog was looking at me out of the back window of the car as they left. So we don't try and run out.
When a large Boston bank tried to buy the Martha's Vineyard National Bank recently, the island community would have nothing of it. Steve Potter, the vineyard's only dairy farmer, was one of the many who spoke out.
I felt very strongly about keeping the local bank local. The local people know you, they know what you're doing. In fact, the president of the bank has cows, so he knows what's going on. And I don't know, I suppose it's the feeling of independence when you're down here. It's kind of in charge of what you're doing. It's like the town itself. They like to be in charge of what they're doing.
During the winter months, as Steve puts it, you can't turn the cows off. So he makes cheese for next summer's tourists. The bank finances his operation from its commercial branch office, a restored 19th century house. This is Bill Honey's idea of the way banking ought to be, the way it was before there were any banks.
If anyone needed money, they would go to the house of the wealthiest person in town and sit down in their living room and talk about their needs. So we have made 3 little living room offices, and our customer comes in and transacts their business in the same way they would have in 1850.
And we hope to do another one this week.
On Cape Cod, preserving the past is one way to preserve the future. Another is to do what comes naturally in Massachusetts, to stand firm and question. Boston is best known as the birthplace of America, but for all its history and old world charm, Boston is a city of contrasts. It's high-minded, yet provincial, bold, yet reserved. To understand what Boston is, first look back to what it was. The Puritans who founded Boston were more than religious, they were downright fanatic. Their city, set upon a hill, soon became a hotbed of intolerance. A sailor was once whipped for kissing his wife in public. The following year, whipped again for ignoring her. It was tough to win in Puritan Boston.
For 200 years, roughly, this was a very homogeneous society here. We were Anglo-Saxon, we were Protestants, we were descended from the Puritans, and the influence of the Protestant church was very strong. And since then, things have changed a great deal, and I'm sure they've changed for the better.
The descendants of the Yankee aristocracy are a select breed of Bostonians known as Brahmins. Their family ancestry and accomplishments place them high on the social register, and in John Quincy Adams's case, among the most distinguished names in American history.
Well, John Adams was 3 greats, great-great-great-grandfather, And his son, President John Quincy Adams, was, of course, great-grandfather. I think the family has been characterized by people with a strong sense of internal discipline, self-discipline, certainly a leaning towards the scholarly, a determined sense of integrity and honesty. I would cut my arm off before I do anything to blotch the family name.
Like most Brahmins these days, John Quincy Adams is a businessman with a company that bears another name straight from the pages of history.
Well, every now and then people do ask me if it isn't a bit much to be working for the John Hancock Life Insurance Company and have a name such as I have. But I guess after a while they accept it.
The waves of Irish immigration that began around 1840 dramatically changed the character of Boston. They came nearly 2 million strong, penniless and starving, and took whatever work they could get.
The Yankees treated the Irish in Boston very badly. It came back to haunt them.
Suffering the worst discrimination against whites in this nation's history, the Boston Irish used the one weapon they had, their vote. James Michael Curley, four-time mayor of Boston, came to symbolize colorful and sometimes corrupt Irish politics. To his enemies, he was ruthless. To his friends, he was a Robin Hood, using political shenanigans to take care of his people, the poor.
Curley came from the same kind of economic family situation that I came from. I come from working class family. We know what oppression means. We know what it means to go without.
I didn't come empty-handed. Irish bread, Polish bread, and you know what? Homemade baked beans. What else would you get in Boston? Look at that, huh?
When Ray Flynn was elected Boston's mayor, he brought to the job his modest beginnings, his Celtic warmth, and a legacy of Irish politics that's now the city's trademark.
As a youngster, I've seen Jack Kennedy march these streets. Now to think that I'm the honorary marshal of this parade as its mayor, it's a real proud day.
St. Patrick's Day in South Boston. Gone are the signs saying Irish need not apply. In their place, signs of support for a mayor whose pledge is to give City Hall to its rightful owners, the citizens of Boston.
You can get things done, you can help a large number of people, and that's basically what my philosophy of life is, never mind politics, and that is to help people who aren't able to help themselves. Housing authority, so this is your day, you deserve it. Thanks very, very much.
Boston is a tough city to manage. Born in uniformity, it grew up in variety. As lines drawn between Yankees and Irish began to blur, other ethnic and racial groups arrived, seeking, as the Irish had, freedom and opportunity. And though each of their neighborhoods looks and feels distinctive, their hopes are one and the same.
They really want to see this city to be a racially peaceful city. They want their children to receive a decent education. They want to have an opportunity at a job. They want to be able to walk the streets in safety and in peace. So that's what we're trying to do here in the city, getting people working together on those common issues.
America is not really a place. America is a dream, and peasants all over the world dream the dream and come here looking for opportunity. When the Irish came, when Jewish people came, all immigrants, they were white people. Even hostile attitudes were less hostile. Then, too, they could blend in. But that has not been true for the black citizen, because in America, race has been larger than class or effort or any other single thing. The effort, therefore, must be to reduce the level of racism so that all people can feel that same dream in coming to America.
Elma Lewis is in the business of keeping dreams alive. At this center she founded in the Roxbury section of Boston, cultural awareness, and with it, pride, begin at a tender age.
And I say to children, you know, when slave traders came to Africa, they didn't take the worst. They looked for the healthiest, the brightest, the best specimens they could find. You had to have been particularly strong to have survived slavery. Immigrants came looking for opportunity, but our best came. You are the best.
What started as a small school in 1950 is now the National Center for Afro-American Artists, where a rich cultural heritage is passed on one generation to another.
It should be normal for people to look at themselves and see beauty. It should be normal to them to look at their music, their dance, their visual imagery, the words they speak, and see that they have offered precious things to the world.
And stretch. Up. Arabesque. Lift up, lift up, lift up, lift up.
I'm not trying to make a community center. We're trying to make a world center. Hopefully, in 400 years, we'll have a Harvard here. Some people, like Duke Ellington, at the top of his fame, played with the children on the electronic pianos, and they have day-to-day contact with these people. It is a privilege to go to that school. Children are everyone's future. When I walk into the school and see everyone, all the little people that is, eager for life, expecting to be winners, you look around and say, which ones? You give your best effort to everyone. Some here, some don't. And you don't know who will be tomorrow's success. You wonder which ones.
Harvest time in Massachusetts, a yearly reminder of ties to the earth, of life's sweetness, ablaze in autumn color. For those close to the earth like Dan Tosinski, harvest is a time for reflection.
There was one morning, we came out to pick corn. The mist was just hanging low at a level of maybe 15 or 20 feet. And the sun came up and hit those white silos. And just like Camelot. It was incredible. You know, it's one of those mornings where you know why you're a farmer. No, it's not as big as the whole field, but can you get it or not? You want
If this scene looks like a Norman Rockwell painting, it's no surprise. This is Rockwell's Massachusetts. Small-town life and small-town values tucked away in the gently rolling hills of the Berkshires. Norman Rockwell lived in nearby Stockbridge, recording moments that warmed the heart and tickled the funny bone. His illustrations became the way America saw itself, or wanted to, for decades, on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post.
The Norman Rockwell tradition lives. It's alive and well, not living just in Stockbridge, but the whole area. It really is. I think he has served as an inspiration as well.
Can't drop them too many times. They don't like to be dropped that much.
There are more temptations for the kids today than there ever were.
Got it?
Parents teach by example. I don't see any reason why people can't grow up today more or less with the same values that Rockwell's kids grew up with then. It's not a question of them failing or fading out. It's a matter of whether or not people want them to succeed, and I believe they do. I believe they do.
Well, Mr. Rockwell used to come to the school and sort of mosey through the lunchroom and just pick out 2 or 3 people that he thought would be nice to pose. And he happened to pick me.
Ed Locke was 7 years old when he posed as Norman Rockwell's The Runaway. Rockwell liked his cowlicks and his sense of mischief.
He had this dog, and the friends of mine used to take the dog out, let the dog out of the pen, and then wait for Mrs. Rockwell to offer the reward and then bring the dog back to catch it. I think they must have done that 6 times. I suspect she probably figured it out earlier.
Ed is one of many Rockwell subjects who grew up and stayed in Stockbridge, holding on to a way of life they helped immortalize.
This is still a pretty idyllic little town, but yeah, it's kind of comforting to know that you can know your way around without getting yourself lost or in trouble. People kind of take care of each other around.
There are those in Massachusetts who believe the best of worlds is yet to come. In the industrial city of Lowell, they're bringing ideals of the past into a high-tech future. Wang Laboratories, Lowell's largest employer, is a company with a vision, that of its founder, Dr. An Wang. Son Fred is a top executive of this computer giant that started as a one-man shop.
The philosophy that my father has is a mixture of the Confucian thought, the American ideals, and the business realities that he's experienced and learned over the years. He very honestly believes that people are the greatest asset, and he feels that you should return more than you actually received. There are bottom line goals, profit goals, that need to be balanced out with the betterment of the quality of life and the benefits that the employees have.
Wang is part of Massachusetts' second industrial revolution in computers and electronics. The first was in textiles, and it began in Lowell. The city sprang up overnight in the early 19th century as the nation's first mill town. Conceived by Francis Cabot Lowell, it was a worker's utopia, complete with company housing, entertainment, stores, and schools. Lowell's paternalistic system attracted farmers' daughters throughout New England, the famous Lowell girls. Labor unrest and company greed would eventually take their toll, and textile mills moved south. But today, Wang is giving Lowell a second chance, reviving the city's original dream. Employees enjoy benefits most factory workers only dream of. The Wang Country Club, the Artist Guild, Choral Workshop, and Theater Group, to name a few. For working parents, children are cared for at the company's daycare center, one of Dr. Wang's proudest accomplishments.
It's much more enjoyable to work in an environment where everybody is very, very enthusiastic. If you keep the people happy, they will do their utmost to really accomplish what needs to be done.
To the founders of Massachusetts, the sea was an ominous passageway to the New World. To those who live there today, it is one of the state's greatest gifts, a source of wealth and wonder, a source of pleasure. Massachusetts has nearly 1,000 miles of shoreline, offering a wide variety of seaside pastimes. For some, it's reliving the golden age of sail. For others, it's venturing out on less exotic craft. For still others, enjoying the sea is as simple as doing nothing at all. Its picturesque harbors attract artists from all over the world. So many have painted this scene in Rockport that it's known as motif number 1, the most painted scene in America, and a symbol of New England coastal charm. Still, for many in Massachusetts, the sea is serious business. They draw their livelihood from it. They are fishermen. The state ranks second nationwide in the value of its catch, due largely to the fleets of New Bedford on the south shore and Gloucester on the north. Fishing is a family tradition in Gloucester for countless generations of Yankees, and now for Italian and Portuguese immigrants. These waters are plentiful, but dangerous. Gloucester has lost more than 10,000 men to the sea, a fact Angela Sanfilippo lives with. Her husband, John, goes out for a week or two at a time, facing constant danger, like the night his boat nearly went down in a violent storm.
They were just scared stiff. They didn't know what to do. And they were sinking, and the men had to put their life suits on. Luckily, then they started the pumps on, and they worked. But even today, with all the modern equipments and everything, it's just as dangerous as it was 50 years ago.
Try to help
Angela is president of the Fishermen's Wives Association. They fiercely protect their husbands' industry and lend each other moral support.
I can remember one particular time when my husband was fishing and they were out on a storm. They came into Gloucester Harbor and they looked like a floating iceberg. In fact, my husband says, I don't know how I had all this guts to do all this, but that didn't discourage him. He still went out over and over. He fished for over 50 years.
They enjoy it. That's the only job that they really know and can do.
We always had a nice time together. You never fight because they're away so long and you come in and you're so glad to see them and you're happy. You know, it's really, it's not really all bad.
Once a year, and once a year only, the entire fleet comes ashore. It's a 3-day fiesta honoring St. Peter, patron saint of fishermen. A time of thanks for a plentiful catch and for the safe return of their men. And a time to profess one's faith. A faith that in Gloucester is part of everyday life, a way of coping with everyday dangers.
The church recognizes the hard work that is involved in fishing, the risk that is involved at sea, and the uneven results that often accompany the labor. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, come upon these vessels.
The blessing of the fleet, bestowed on all the boats and their crews on the last day of the fiesta. Tomorrow, they begin another year at sea. In days gone by, Nantucket Island bustled with another seafaring trade, whale hunting. The island is steeped in the charm of the 1830s, when it was the whaling capital of the world. Captains' mansions along cobblestone streets recall when Nantucket vessels sailed the globe in search of their prey. With primitive weapons, they engaged in an endurance contest with an animal twice the size of their boat, returning home with precious sperm oil that made them rich men. The discovery of crude oil changed all that. Whale oil was no longer profitable. Today, whale hunting is illegal in U.S. waters, except the kind Dr. Charles Mayo does at the Center for Coastal Studies in Provincetown. Dr. Mayo, Stormy to his friends, is a marine biologist who studies whales, the descendants of those hunted in these waters a century ago by members of his own family.
The imagining I have is that they met on the bank, and as I often say, it's lucky my great-grandparents were lousy harpooners because a few of them made it through. My heritage is in my blood and maybe in my bones, and maybe I was destined to do this. And I suppose the whales are tied to the bank in maybe the same way that I am.
Stormy, his assistant Carol, and his dad at the wheel will spend 16 hours this day on the open sea. They will search for whales in a new area, on a hunch Stormy has. and they will have a day better than any they've had in years.
So research vessel Halos out of Provincetown, the dragger east of Highland Light. We're going to be traveling down the backside looking for whales, and if any of you give us a hand by giving us a call on them, we'd very much appreciate it.
And there are also spouts beyond the dragger.
What I got is about a mile away.
What we know of whales is little, but that they're large and that they're almost extinct. All of us, including myself, make a lot of hypotheses as to where they travel and perhaps what they do. The fact of it is they spend nearly all their life obscured from us, and there's no way we could know them.
And we got whales astern of us we haven't seen either.
I don't know, what do you think?
Let's go offshore. See them there? 2 lunges right there. See them? 2 of them. There are 2 side by side.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are able to imagine until we see them. After you've worked on them for a while, it's a different sense.
Oh, there's 2 whales doing the same thing. There are 2 whales doing the same thing over there.
In the original case, it's the largeness of the animal, the grace of the animal, and that's still there, but now our thrills relate to who they are, and if we see a whale we haven't seen for years, seeing what scars it's had, or perhaps seeing it with its new calf.
I'm going to try to get dorsals and tails on these if they look like they're new. Come on, beauty. See your big black tail. Oh, our old friend. Oh. Could that be feather?
Oh, this is so nice to see. It's been a long time.
It's nice to know where they are.
Yeah.
Jesus, I wouldn't know one from another right now. Too much action. God, am I glad you're along.
It's important to understand them and hopefully to protect them. It ought to be somewhere or other important to the human spirit, or perhaps maybe the spirit of life on Earth that we carry in us. And the whales have simply represented one of the most interesting and one of the most captivating parts of that life.
There are many places where you'd expect to find 63 humpbacks in a few hours. I'd say that's pretty exciting.
This work is a labor of love. Funding is scarce, and days like this are the exception. But in Massachusetts, there are other reasons. Here, it's the commitment that matters.
I have faith that we really ought to find the things that we most passionately wish to do, and then do them even if it's not an easy way of going. And that is, if you do what you really want to do, you're likely going to do it best of all. I'm certainly doing what I want to do.
Ideas and ideals. They live them in Massachusetts. I'm Hal Holbrook. Join us again for Portrait of America.
Portrait of America, a comprehensive learning system, is available for classroom use from Raintree Publishers. For information about this video encyclopedia, call Raintree toll-free, 1-800-558-1580. That's 1-800-558-1580.